That was actually quite nice, wasn't it?
Thank you very much, Nicholas. I didn't expect that, to be honest, so I'm as surprised as John was before. And yeah, what can I say? It's better. Sometimes it's better to be quiet. And as I'm talking too much anyway, at that moment, I thank you very much for that kind introduction. Yesterday we started to talk about some movies. The IJOC president mentioned a certain movie, and the title is much too long that I can repeat that here again. And I was into Inspector Clouseau. My movie for today is a little bit Groundhog Day, because this is happening in my life again and again, that at a certain time I wake up and I have to do the rules presentation, and it's more or less, it's always repeating itself. So welcome to my personal Groundhog Day, if you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, first of all, I really would like to welcome you again on behalf of the FEI. For me, it's now this year a little bit strange, because it's the first year for me that I'm only wearing one hat, because in the previous years it was always representing the IJOC and to a certain degree the FEI at the same time. So I feel a little bit more, whatever, released that there is only one organization I have to work for. So on behalf of FEI, I really would like to welcome you. This seminar which we are doing here as a cooperation between the FEI and the IJOC really shows the very strong relationship. And as my roots are here in this club, I'm very happy to see that this relationship really goes on, that the new president with this board is continuing to work on that relationship, which is really, really important for us as FEI, as it is important for the club. And you can see from the fact that the FEI president will join us here later in this morning, shows how strong this relationship is. So Ingmar de Vos will visit us for a second time in only a few years. Last year we were at the FEI headquarters and we had the FEI Secretary General being with us the whole time. And just to point out, it's not that Ingmar is here for the show. Ingmar is just coming to see you all and talk to you and send his message, and he's just coming to join this event. He is not doing anything else here in Amsterdam. He's not there for the show. And that really shows how strong, the cooperation is between the two institutions. And I think this is absolutely important. Do me one favor. Something should happen on these screens from time to time. I can't see these screens. I can only see my computer. If the welcome slide is on for 1.5 hours, then there's something wrong. Then please let me know. Yeah, because on my computer there is something changing, but not necessarily over there. Before we really start with this presentation, please allow me to make some comments, because of course I discussed with the director a little bit, with the director jumping a little bit what he would say, and I was thinking if I should come back to some of the things he has mentioned, and I thought, before I go through the rules, I just make some comments. And the first thing, I also thank you all for all the time you invest, for all the money you invest, because let's be honest, you get a certain daily allowance, but this is sometimes not even covering the costs which you invest to go to an event. And the sport is changing a lot. The expectations are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's very difficult for us as officials, and I guess I can talk a little bit about that being an official myself. The expectations are going bigger and bigger and bigger, and the pressure is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. The prize money is getting higher and higher and higher. And I really just want to thank you for everything you really do. But I also want to take the opportunity, knowing also the other side of the table now a little bit better, to thank John Roach and the whole jumping department, because the work they are really doing there for the sport and for jumping in particular is incredible. And the time they are investing is incredible. And the office is not open 24/7, but at least there is one person, and this is John, whose mobile phone is on at least 24/7. And unfortunately, I would say, most of you have his telephone number. And I'm not so sure whether I should say unfortunately, because the other ones, they have my telephone number, and if you do not call him, then most of the time you call me. So I'm very happy that you call him first. I'm not jealous at all, so please continue to call him in the middle of the night. But he is really available all of the time, more or less, including Easter and Christmas and everything in between. As I have just learned from my dear friend Nicholas, that obviously Mr. Roach has Irish roots, and I was not aware of that at all. Thank God you told me, because for what reason ever, let's talk about people with Irish roots. And when I was doing my exercise early in the morning, running around a little bit in the streets of Amsterdam here, I found this little street, which is the President Kennedy Street, more or less, which is just across the road here. And as you know, obviously Mr. Kennedy, or President Kennedy, is another very important person besides John Roach with Irish roots. So why am I thinking about President Kennedy when I'm talking to you about rule changes or about judging as such? It always makes sense to start with a good quote from somebody. And this is a quote you all know. Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. Why am I using this? I just want to explain that. John was talking about appointments. And you can imagine if you have to appoint, what did he say, 353 people, foreign judges and 78 foreign stewards. Maybe you can't really fulfill all the expectations from the people. And I have to admit that even if it shouldn't happen, sometimes it does happen that somebody is slipping through our net. That can happen. That is not on purpose. This is because it's simply very difficult to do this job. In the meantime, there are really several people in the jumping department working on that, to make it transparent and to make it good for the sport. And that's why I put on this slide. Because my experience now, being the chair for 1 year, is, and I guess John could tell about the same quotes I'm just showing you now, we are receiving lots of emails and lots of requests, and some of them are like this. Could you please appoint me to this event? It's such a nice place. Thank you for reminding us that some shows are very nice. I have to say that we are aware of it. Yeah, there are some shows which are super, super nice, and everybody wants to go there. You will understand, not each and everyone can go at the same time to Hickstead, to Aachen, to Dublin, to all the five-star shows, and so on and so on. It's very difficult to do this. Another quote, could you please appoint me for a CSI or five-star? I want to get more experience. Sorry, this is not the purpose of an appointment. We do not appoint you to shows that you get more experience. I want to be very clear on that. When we appoint you to a high-level show, we expect from you that you have the experience because, as John explained earlier, you are the person responsible to solve the problems. And you are not there to be on a learning curve. We all learn each and every day. And every time I go to a show, I learn. But it is not the purpose of appointing you to a show that you get experience. Simple as that. If you want to get experience, and if you want to judge more, then the exchange program might be something for you. But it's not the point that you will be appointed for a show. You might not really like this, but that's the way it is. We expect from you that you are ready to do the job and that you are not learn on the job. Last quote I wanted to mention is, I got only 3 appointments this year, and only one of them is a CSI 5-star. Yeah, I understand that as well. First of all, if you really got 3 appointments, and these are really quotes word by word, it's not that I'm playing with something. If you really got 3 appointments, I guess then you are pretty high up that you got 3. Because we try to give 1 or 2, and some people get 3. And I'm talking about the normal appointments, and the championships and games are not included in that. So we are trying to do this. And if you really got 3, then you got already something. The reason that we appoint you as well to 3- and 4-star shows is because we believe that you can add something to this specific show. Because maybe you know the mentality of the people, or you speak a language of a region, because not everywhere people speak proper English. So sometimes it's important for us that you do something for the sport, and we think that you are the right person for this show, even if it's not a 5-star show. It makes sense for us, because this is something what you can do for your country, or should I say for the FEI, or even better to say what you can do for the sport. So the main purpose is not necessarily to make you happy when you are appointed. We try our best to be fair with this. We try our very best to be transparent. And of course, I hear again and again very interesting stories about how people think appointments are made. And I can say, as I have a little bit background information now, that this is definitely not the case. So please bear that a little bit in mind when it comes to appointments. Having said that, and after these some comments, now let's really start with the rule changes, because that's a little bit the purpose of this presentation. And as usual, and the people who are the regular visitors to this event know the first few slides, because this is more or less always the same. So some remarks. In 2018, there was no real rule revision. Just to point out what the difference is, what we usually do is every 4 years we do a rule revision, and in between we only fix some construction sites where it's really important to deal with this because there is a welfare issue, there is a fairness issue, or something which really has to be tackled immediately. However, the situation today is simple as that as soon as we have finished this event here, John and I will start the preparation for the in-person meeting of the jumping committee in March. And the main thing on the agenda will be rule changes. Because, and we are very happy with that there are so many requests coming in. However, all in all, I would say that the rules are not that bad. And with the requests we get, we spend something like 50% of the work in the committee just with requests for rule changes. So I still want to motivate you. If you see something that there is something wrong with the rules and should be improved, let us know. But we have to be a little bit careful that we do not invest too much time during the year and each and every year and bring up new rules each and every year, because on top of that, it's not only the work in the committee, it's as well that the stakeholders, including the officials, they do not even have the time to learn the new rules, and then already the new edition is out. So we have to see that we have a little bit more consistency with the rules. So in 2018, there was no rule revision. We just took a look at some rule changes, and that really was a lot of work. As usual, we have approached all FEI stakeholders. We discussed all these changes in the FEI Jumping Committee. Then once again, we send it out to the stakeholders, we get their feedback again, and finally, then the final version has been approved at the FEI General Assembly in Manama in Bahrain in November 2018. Some rules are new, some are just modifications, some are clarifications, and some are even minor corrections. What I'm doing here in this presentation, I'm focusing really only on the most important rule changes. So still you have to do some homework. I simply can't discuss each and every comma and full stop with you, because even if we change a comma, it's a rule change, like it or not. It's a little bit bureaucracy. So we are concentrating on the major things. And what I'm trying to do, because otherwise I have to read here rules to you for an hour, I'm not reading all the text to you which is on the slides. I'm trying to give you a little bit the spirit why we as the committee or some other stakeholders thought that these rules should be changed, that you understand the philosophy behind that. Reading the rule changes, that's very easy, what you can do at home. So as usual, the old text is in black and the new text is in red. The first complex of rule changes, and it starts with this Article 203 about the bell, is that we learned at the last FEI Sports Forum that obviously there is a serious issue if there is a fall, especially of an athlete. Okay, an athlete falls off for what reason ever, and in most of the cases the athlete's getting up and he's trying to get rid of the dust and the dirt and everything is fine. In most of the cases it is like that, but in a lot of cases it looks like that. And the key word here is concussion, that people really might have a problem which is resulting in that fall and that they have a problem with their brain later on. And this is more serious than we ever thought. And we got some research, or we did some research, and we got some really good data in now that we really see that this is an issue. Based on that, we have decided that if an athlete has a fall in any case before he can compete, he has to see the medical service team at the event. It can be the paramedics, it can be a doctor, whatever. I will show you in a second on one of the slides the text, and this text comes up again and again in some of these rules. However, we also found out, because this is the procedure, you work on a rule, you have a certain intention, so we start with the sports side, then it goes to legal, and legal takes a look at that and is adding something, and then as we are talking about a medical case, there is then also the FEI people who deal with human doctors and all these things, and there's also the veterinary department, because we also talk about the horses, and they all give their input, and then it can happen that it needs a little bit more clarification. And now this rule is on since 3 weeks, more or less. I've been to 2 shows, and I've seen in very different places. I've been to a show in Switzerland, and I've been to one show in the Emirates in the meantime, that they handle this in a completely different way. And having this experience now, I contacted the legal department, and I'm very happy that Michael Rentsch is here. And I was also in contact with the veterinary department and also with the human doctors in FEI. And Michael will present later a kind of procedure that we have a standardized procedure how to deal with this. So what I'm trying to explain to you now is what the rule is. Michael will talk to you later and explain to you what you have to do in case of a fall of an athlete or a fall of the rider. So, and I'm going to explain that with the help of Rule 203. The bell is used to communicate with the athletes, and then there is a lot of text, and then there is the rule about the 45 seconds, and that you can interrupt the countdown. That's all old. So, and then there are these incidents, not limited to disobediences and fall, and so on and so on. So that's all old. But now there is a new paragraph in this article, and the paragraph is like that. So the bell is still used to communicate with the athlete. However, in the event of a fall of an athlete and or horse, at any time from the moment the athlete-horse combination enters the competition arena, up until the moment they cross the starting line in the correct direction, whether or not the signal to start has been given, the combination will not be permitted to start in the round or competition in question, and the bell must be rung accordingly. Long sentence, just that you understand the message. First of all, it doesn't matter whether there is a fall from the rider or a fall from the horse. I don't think that it's really possible that the horse falls without the fall of the rider, but everything is happening. Maybe there is an example how that would work, but so we have extended that, and it's not only during the round, it's also before the rider has started his round. The moment when the rider comes to the arena and it happens there, then this rider does not get permission to start. And I want to be very clear here. This rider won't be eliminated. Elimination is something which is happening between start and finish line. So if you haven't crossed the start line, you simply can't be eliminated. The rider or the horse is simple as that. He is not fit to compete. He does not get permission to start. That's also what should be shown on the result sheet. Did not start. It's not disqualification, it's not elimination. It has nothing to do with this. If an athlete has a fall, he is simple as that, he is out. If it would happen during the competition, between start and finish line, then he is eliminated, as we always did. But it would happen before the start line, then he does not have the permission to start. That's something, legally this is something completely different. And please take care of that. There was the question coming up, why do we have to ring the bell then? Because to ring the bell would be the signal that the rider is eliminated. Yeah, I see this point, but if you go down that article, there is a sentence number 3, to stop an athlete for any reason. So, and what you do there is you stop the athlete for any reason, because the any reason in this case is the fall. So in this case you have to ring the bell, because how do you want to communicate to the rider that he's not allowed to start if you do not ring the bell? So if you ring the bell, then this is not the signal that the athlete has been eliminated. It is the signal that he's not allowed to compete. Is that clear so far? That's good. By the way, I would appreciate, sorry to contradict Mr. Brooks Ward a little bit. As a matter of fact, it is a pleasure to do that. No, if you should have any questions related to a certain rule, it's easier for me to answer that immediately than coming back to that an hour later. Jerry.
Just to clarify, the rider doesn't get to start even if, he got a clearance from the medical team, within, the time of that class. It doesn't get a later starting.
For that class, it's a no.
Okay.
Simple as that.
Right.
Yeah, he can come back for the next class if he has entered a horse for the next class. The same applies for the horse. But for this, it's simply no. The reason for that is very easy. If you are one of the first starters, the likelihood that you get an okay from the doctors is pretty big. If you are the second last starter, you will never get this in time. So it would be a big disadvantage to be at the end of the start list. So it has to be the same for everybody. And that's why we say it's tough luck. You have a fall, then you're out for the competition. Take a deep breath, life goes on. And the next competition you are on again. But not in this competition. As long as it happens in the arena. Angers. Right.
Dismounting. Yeah. Dismounting is technically a fall. So if a rider dismounts between start and finish, he's eliminated for a fall. What happens if he dismounts before? And how are we to judge it, if it's a proper fall or if it's dismounting?
Yeah. Technically, there is a clear definition what a fall is, and this is that you have to mount again and so on and so on. So, and yeah, like it or not, this is including if you would dismount.
Okay.
Because we simply can't find a way to have a clear definition. And where's the borderline?
Yeah,
every rider would tell you. Every rider who would fell off will tell you later. No, I didn't fall off. I dismounted.
Well, actually, I have seen two riders dismount with a broken leg. It looked like they were dismounting.
Okay.
But it was a fall.
Yeah,
and they went out on the stretcher.
So who can really judge that in the end? This would be a completely gray zone if you are dismounting or if you are falling off. So technically, it is exactly the same.
Okay,
however, I guess we can agree on something. If you, as the ground jury, see that there is a safety issue or whatever there could be, and use your imagination what could happen, and the rider is asking you for permission to dismount for what reason ever, and you think that you should give him the permission, then of course in this situation it is not a fall, because then he is dismounting with the permission of the ground jury. And don't let me spend too much time in finding an example what this could be. But maybe it would happen to you that you say there is whatever it is. And then of course you can't say this rider had a fall. But then he's doing that with your permission. As you can give permission that somebody is entering the arena not mounted, and then he's going to mount in the arena. This is with special permission of the ground jury. Then do not say, oh, you are walking in on feet, you had already a fall. Yeah, so I guess this is explaining that. Yeah.
Well, just example for this situation was when he loses his whip before the start.
This is definitely not a reason where I would give him a permission to dismount. This is definitely no reason. No, sorry. No, this is not a safety thing. If he is not able to carry his whip, that's his problem. Simple as that. dismounting there, I wouldn't give permission to that. No. It's definitely possible to compete even without a whip. Good.
Okay, one more.
Yeah,
Lauren
one more
Roberts-
question and then I really have to move on.
Hey, Lauren Roberts in Canada. If in a competition a rider is allowed to have more than one horse, and in his first horse this happens, they get a did not start. They go back, they are cleared, the paramedic checks them, they're okay, they did not hit their head, they're they're fine. Are they allowed to come back with their second horse if it's later in the draw?
Let me click to one or two more slides and then I guess we will answer that question. And if not, then you have to remind me. John, do you know that by heart? Otherwise, I really have to see.
We'll have to look at that. I mean,
I guess there is an answer for that. Give me a second. We come back to that. Good question. Good. We have more or less the same procedure again and again and again. It is always the same question again and again. There is something about the rule about falls in case of a fall of an athlete and or horse at any time in the competition arena, in the practice arena. So now you see that it's not only counting in the competition arena, it's also in the practice arena or elsewhere within the grounds of the event. The athlete and or horse the athlete and or the horse must be cleared by the event's medical service, respectively by the veterinary delegate, before the athlete and or horse may be permitted to take part in the next round or competition at the event. So, John, the more I read this, yeah.
so it's very simple, right? You fall off, right? Sorry, it's very simple. You fall off. In order to be allowed to ride again, you need the medic needs to see you, right? And the medic says, if you're okay, the medic will say there are no physical signs why this rider should not continue or whatever. It reports it to the grand jury, and the grand jury will say, yes, go ahead, it's all right. But the grand jury needs to sign it off, right, on the report from the medic. So he can't ride until that happens, and that's it. Very simple. Even if it's his 10th horse. It makes no difference. He needs to be signed off by the grand jury before he's allowed to compete again.
If you fall off on the warm-up
Same thing.
and you're cleared by the medical people and you're confidence with the grand jury, is it still allowed then to start in the class you were preparing?
Yes, for sure. He can. Yes,
As
he
long
can.
as it's in the warm-up, yes. If it's in the competition arena, it's clearly said that you are out with this horse in this class. You can't come back for the horse with this horse in this class. This is what the rule is clearly stating. If this happens in the warm-up, then you still have the time, and then if the vet gives the okay or the doctor gives the okay, then you might get some positions later, and that's
So he
it.
can come back with his second horse. I mean, if he signed off.
All the procedures about signing it off, Michael will deal with that in a moment. I'm trying to save some time. If you continue about falls, there is this rule, also long red text, and the text is more or less always the same, and the result is always the same. The combination will not be able to take part in the round or competition in question. The combination, so, and that is clarifying the question. The horse-rider combination is not allowed, but if then you find the time that the doctor gives you permission to start with another horse, that's fine. But the horse and rider combination who had a fall is out for this competition. This is my interpretation of it, and I guess that makes sense. Good. There is a special rule about a fall at any time, whatever in the competition arena. There is a special rule if that happens in a competition with an immediate jump off. The philosophy is always the same. That's why I'm not going through all these slides. There is another thing in the competition with a jump off, and so on, and so on, and so on, and so on. Philosophy is always the same. For something completely different, Table C, we haven't really changed a lot. This is more a clarification than it is a modification. You know that usually you give 4 seconds for a pole down, and then we had that rule since last year that it could be 3 seconds or even 2 seconds under certain conditions. And we found out that we were not clear enough with the rule, especially when we talk about competitions where you can only get 2 seconds per pole. And in this case, height of the obstacle is 1.50 meters. Then if it is mentioned in the schedule, and only then, it might be only 2 seconds. However, we saw that in reality, there were a lot of course designers who on paper had to build a 1.50 meter course. And then as it is a table C competition, it was more or less a 1.40 meter course. And then this becomes a flat race. Simple as that. And to avoid that, there is one clarification now, and this is the 2 seconds penalty may only be applied if at least 50% of the obstacles on the course have a height of 1.50 meter. If there are fewer than 50% of the obstacles at 1.50 meter, the 3 or 4 seconds penalty must be applied. So even if it is approved in the schedule that it's 2 seconds, if you then see that the course designer is not putting up minimum of 50% of the fences to 1.50 meter, we all agree that in the 1.50 meter class, not all of the fences have to be 1.50 meter. But if it is more a 1.40 meter competition than it is a 1.50 meter competition, even if it's mentioned in the schedule that it's 2 seconds, you have to go back to 3 seconds or to 4 seconds. Yeah? That's very important that we take a look at that. It doesn't happen that often. It has to be already a high-level show when you have a 1.50 meter competition, and it only counts there. But we really have to be careful with that. And at the moment, due to the experience we have with this rule, even with this addition to the rule, we are at the moment not really too happy to what is happening in reality. I've been to a show some weeks ago where we had a table C competition, 1.50 meter, and I took care that everything was on 1.50 meter, not everything, but at least 50%. And we had people top placed in the ranking with 4 poles down. Because these 2 seconds you add is motivating riders to take a much bigger risk, and they are really chasing through the course, and the poles are flying, and if this is then 1.50 meter, the pictures are not really the way we like them to be. So we will take another look at that if for the 2019 rules we keep the rule as such, or we go back to whatever we go back to. It's a little sad that this is happening, because some organizers have that already since long time, and they are really doing their best to have a very good competition format. But then sometimes in reality, it shows that other people do it in a different way, and you are always punishing the wrong ones.
I'm saying nothing.
You learn from me.
I know.
Yeah. That's good. Eliminations. Yeah, there are a lot of things about eliminations. One thing we had to add, and you might remember that we did that with disqualification already some years ago, because we found out that disqualification can also be retroactive. Now, as we have changed the blood rule, and now blood would lead to elimination, and this would also be retroactive then, we had to add this sentence to the elimination rule. Elimination may also be retroactive. So it is possible. I said in the beginning, elimination is only possible between start and finish line, but now it is also possible after the rider has finished his round, you can still eliminate him, and the best example is if there is blood on the horse. You would eliminate the rider retroactively. So this rule is making it clear that it's possible. You know all these reasons why riders could be eliminated. However, we found out that we were a little bit on thin ice with things we did in the past, because there was not really a clear rule. And I can remember, and I'm looking at Angèle, that we had that discussion years ago, what you do if a rider is competing with wrong boots, what the result of that would be. And we said spontaneously, John and I, we said that, yeah, of course you eliminate the rider. And you said, where is it written? And as a matter of fact, yeah, we always did that. But it was not really mentioned somewhere. So now there is a new reason for elimination, which is point 21. Non-compliance with the rules relating to saddlery and equipment. And then there are the article numbers about that. We come to that a little later. That's also a reason to be eliminated. So if somebody should compete with wrong tech, and after I had a very nice discussion with the Jumping Riders Club some weeks ago, where I heard that it's our responsibility that they compete with the right tech, well, to a certain degree, of course, if you are stewarding somewhere or if you are officiating somewhere and you see in the warm-up that a competitor is competing or is warming the horse up with wrong tech, then I expect from you all that you talk to the rider immediately and that you do not wait till the rider comes back from the competition arena and then say, oh, unfortunately, you took the wrong boots. That is, of course, not a procedure we are looking for. So prevent and help. So if you see, and this is very important, we come to the hind boot rules in a second. It's now, at the moment, it's very important because people really have to learn that there are new rules about tech. It would be nice, and in an ideal world, on the 1st of January, everybody would be aware about all the rules, and riders would know what they have to do. But this is not really reality. So at least now, at the moment, where everybody has to get used to the new rules, we have to really help them. However, the person responsible to make that also absolutely clear is the athlete, and it's not the steward at the warm-up. So if somebody is slipping through your net with wrong tech and the rider comes out and the horse is wearing wrong boots, he has to be eliminated by the ground jury. Not by the stewards, by the way, by the ground jury. So, and this is now also very clear in the rules. You will remember that last year we had a discussion about a case which happened in Mechelen with a certain rider who fell off after the horse jumped a fence. He crossed the finish line, then the horse jumped the fence after the finish line and he fell off. And it was a little bit the question, what do we do with the rider? Because you are not allowed to jump a fence after you cross the finish line. So for that reason, we have a new rule about that. So it's jumping or attempting to jump an obstacle in the arena after the completion of the round. It's elimination, unless circumstances rendered it impossible for the athlete-horse combination to avoid jumping the obstacle. And then there is an example, in a competition with an immediate jump-off or in a two-phase competition, if the bell is rung too late for the athlete to safely pull up before the obstacle. I guess the two-phases competition is the most common example. You have a finish line, which is the start line of the second phase, and then 4 strides after the finish line, there is the first fence of the second phase. So the pole of the last fence falls down very late. The rider has already crossed the finish line, is already approaching the fence. You ring the bell to stop him. He is now 2 strides away. How do you want him to stop the horse? Pulling hard, is that what we want to have? No, most likely he's going to jump that fence. So in this case, the rule does not count that you have to eliminate the rider. If he's jumping the whole second phase because he thinks that schooling is a nice thing, then this is a completely different ballgame. But I guess you understand what this is good for. There is another rule change, which is a little bit the change of a philosophy we had over years, and this is the rule about elimination or withdrawn from a jump-off or a second round. First of all, I would like to draw your attention to the fact that we have added the part or second round to this rule, because in the old rule book it was just the jump-off, but for a second round it is exactly the same. By the way, because I have been approached that people saw that there are changes to the competition with the winning round, and there is only mentioned elimination and retirement. A competition with the winning round is nothing else but a competition over 2 rounds. You have also 2 rounds, so this rule also applies for that, even if the withdrawn of a horse is not really mentioned in this article about the winning round. Okay, so the old philosophy was somebody who is trying hard should be better off than somebody who says, I'm not even trying, or somebody who would say, I'm going to retire. I'm starting the jump off, but then for what reason ever, and there is not even a reason, after 2 jumps I say, oh, I'm not jumping anymore. And that was a very complicated rule, because the old rule was saying it's elimination, and then it is on the same place, retirement with a valid reason. And if you would decide that it's not a valid reason, if it's an invalid reason, then he would be placed on the same place as the one who has withdrawn. So first of all, I never found out what the difference is between a valid reason or non-valid reason. Of course, I know non-valid reasons, but how can you prove that? Of course, it's obvious when a rider gets self-eliminated, for example, that you would deal with that maybe in a slightly different way. And if you really can't see any reason that a rider retires, then you might say this is not a valid reason. But if he tells you, I felt that my horse is not well, how can you prove that he is wrong? So does that really make sense to talk about all of that? We have decided that we want to simplify the whole thing. And from now on, the situation is like that. An athlete team that is eliminated or that retires in the jump off or second round will be placed equal last in the jump off or second round. Just to make that clear, because as we are not, including myself, as we are not all native English speaking people, last in a jump off is not, let's use the example, you have 10 in the jump off, you have 5 reaching the finish line, and all the other ones do not reach the finish line because they have retired, they are eliminated, or they are withdrawn. Last does not mean that they are equal 10th. Last means you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the other ones are equal 6. Yeah, that's the last place of the people in the jump-off. It's not the 10th place. It's slightly different, and that is then the second next slide. If they are all not competing, then they get the last place where they would have jumped off. Yeah, that's a completely different thing. So 5 are competing, 10 are in the jump off, 5 are competing, 5 are not competing or not finishing or whatever they do, they are equal 6, not equal 10th. Just to avoid that confusion there, which might come up. An athlete who, with the permission of the ground jury, withdraws from a jump off must always be placed equal with an athlete eliminated or who retires on the course. I know that not everybody is happy with that, but I just want to explain why we did this. And when I had that presentation with the Jumping Riders Club, a little bit unexpected for me. For other people, it was not that unexpected. I had to learn that obviously, at least the riders who were present there really had competition in their head, and they said, well, if I'm trying, then I should be better off. However, I want to give you one of the main reasons that we said it has to be the same. After we changed the rule for blood on a horse from disqualification to elimination, you might have a situation in the jump-off where one of the riders comes and tells you, I'm going to withdraw from the competition for horse welfare reasons, because my horse is not well, and that's why I'm going to withdraw. Then in the jump-off, you have a rider who is finishing, and then he is coming out with blood on a horse, which is a horse welfare issue. If we now would say the one who has withdrawn will be placed lower than the one who has competed, then the one with the horse welfare issue is higher in the ranking than the one who is protecting the horse. Does that make sense? So, to cut a long story short, and I would really like to ask you a little bit for your assistance and help. This is a new concept. The concept is saying we can't make them jump. And also bear in mind that after we took out all the parts of self-elimination, retiring for non-valid reasons, this is all out. If we now still would have the withdrawn people on a lower place, okay, what do? They come in, they cross the start line, and they retire. And then they move one place up. Do we want to have these pictures? So there are pros and cons. We know that we are touching a little bit new territory with this rule, and we have to see how that works in practice. So it would be very good to get a little bit feedback from you. If you would now see that you say some people are a little bit abusing this rule, If this is the case, then we might have a new look at that. There are reasons to be a little bit concerned about that. I understand that. But I also tried to give you a little bit reasons why I think, or even the jumping committee thought, that it would be good to keep it simple and to have it as it is. So we have to get a little bit experience with the rule. Let's see if this has any influence on qualifiers for Grand Prix or whatever. We always learn, and if there is any reason to go back to the point that we say at least we simplify eliminations and retirement and we have another look at the withdrawn people, we might do this. But for the moment, it would be good if you would come with some feedback if that works in reality or not. Up to now, in the jump-off competitions I have judged since the beginning of the year, there was not an issue at all. But have a look at that, and I'm very interested to hear what you say. What is still in the rule, and I really want to draw your attention to that, is that last sentence here, which was always there. If they all say we are not jumping off, 10 in the jump off, they all say we are not jumping off, then it's up to you to accept that. Then it's that procedure, trophy by lot, sharing the prize money. If you say there is no reason that you are not jumping off, and this has always been like that, then they are equal 10th. There is no trophy, and it's 10 times the prize money of the 10th place. And in this specific case, you do not spend the whole amount of prize money. Because it's not that you add 1 to 10 and divide it by 10. No, they get 10 times the prize money of the 10th prize. So you will not distribute the whole prize money of the class. In this case, and that's more or less the only case, it does not count that we have to spend all the prize money which is in the schedule. And then the rest of the prize money goes to the ground jury, John, or who? The jumping director, or who gets that?
OC.
The OC.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I have to agree, the prize money is with the OC. I had to pay my dues, so this introduction was so great, so the rest of the prize money goes with the OC. Good. Moving on. Participation, age, number of horses, and so on and so on. There is a long article, and there are some modifications in this, that sometimes it is possible that you have more than one horse in the competition with the highest prize money, or in the competition which is the Grand Prix. So, and then you have to take a look at the schedule. So, in a CSI 1-star or 2-star, if there are 50 starters or less, each athlete may ride 2 horses. It's 50 or less because the maximum number in a 1- or 2-star Grand Prix is 100. And obviously, if you have maximum 50 starters, you would not exceed the maximum number of 100 horses. So if then the organizing committee would like to allow that, there is no reason for you to say no. If this really makes sense to have 100 horses in the Grand Prix, that's a completely different question. But if somebody wants to have it, good. For 3- and 4-star, if there are 30 starters or less, each athlete may ride 2 horses, because the maximum number of horses in the 3- and 4-star is 60. If the schedule, for what reason ever, would mention lower numbers, then you have to adopt that, of course. In a 5-star, if there are 25 riders, starters or less, each athlete may ride 2 horses. Starters means people on the start list. So people enter their horse, their one horse, then you find out that there are less than 25, then you can make the decision. That's the idea. And if there is not really a Grand Prix, then there is a competition with the highest prize money, and then more or less the same thing applies. Any questions about that? Yeah.
If you have a 2-star with only 60, max 60 competitions, should we then use the rule for the 3-stars?
Say again, please.
It's Vivi from Denmark. If you have a 2-stars competition with only maximum 60 starters in the Grand Prix, should we then use the rule for CSO 3 and 4?
If you are in a 2-star and you have 60 starters on the list, then you can't have 2 horses, because then you might have 120 in the end, and that's too much. What is maybe
The maximum in the schedule.
You have a maximum of 60 starters in the schedule.
Yeah.
So, and then you have maximum 30 starters.
But it's only for 3 and 4 stars there. It's not from the 2 stars.
Yeah, but the rule is made for the maximum in general. So, John, would you agree? I'm organizing a 2-star competition, and I put in the schedule that I'm not open. That the Grand Prix has a qualifier, and only 40 people qualify for the Grand Prix. So, and then in the end, I have only 20 people who enter. Can I then allow them to compete with 2 horses?
Yeah, only under the condition that it is stated in the schedule. Otherwise, it's not possible, because that's a change.
Yeah.
So it needs to be stated in the schedule if, for example, this scenario arises that riders can compete with 2 horses, right? But there's always a lot of discussion about this 2-horse thing, right? Because we end up with a situation where, for example, let's say the maximum number of riders that are allowed to participate in a Grand Prix is 60. Right? And you get suddenly 40 starters. And then the organizing committee says, well, everybody can ride 2 horses. Well, then suddenly if everybody rides 2 horses, you could have 80 starters, right? Which is in excess of what is allowed. And in addition, you could also end up, well, anyway, that can't be approved because it's too many for a start. So you end up with a situation where some riders are going to ride 1 horse, some riders will ride 2 horses, and consequently the competition can no longer count for ranking points because not everybody is being treated equally. So there are many side effects to this decision. It has to be open for everybody to ride 2 horses. Right, and it has to be stated in the schedule. And for example, if if 60 are allowed in the competition, then if 30 or less declare to start, then you can allow everybody to ride 2 horses. Otherwise, it doesn't work. And it needs to be stated in the schedule.
If I can add one more thing, to be honest, this rule has been made for regions where we know in advance that there is only a very limited number of riders. We are always taking a look, or most of the people here in the room take a look at that with a European or American perspective. But there are regions where they know in advance that they will not have more than 15 starters in a 4-star competition or whatsoever. They will never have more. And then, of course, the organizing committee will say, well, if I have only a Grand Prix with 15 starters, how can I sell this Grand Prix to a sponsor? Because who is really interested in that? So you know already more or less in advance that you will have much less than the maximum number. If you have that at a normal show, if an organizer is putting a limit in the Grand Prix to have lesser horses than the maximum number of the class, then he should have a reason for that, because otherwise he could keep the class open and go with the maximum number. So if he puts a limit there and then later on says, and now I'm opening it for 2 horses, that does not really make sense. So in this specific case, we should really, as John just said, we should stick to that, because this would be a change. And every time you would change that, you have to be aware of one thing. It gives a disadvantage to certain people, because most of the riders expect I can only take 1 horse to the Grand Prix, and then suddenly you say, oh, now you can take 2. Yeah, some of them, they have to, and other ones say, oh, I'm only here with 1 horse, so what benefit do I get? So if you change that and open that, be very careful with this. But as I say, this rule is made for certain regions where you know in advance and where there is a kind of tradition. And just to legalize that and to put that in a kind of frame, we have made that clarification to the rule. Yeah? Good. So, as I said, if there is no Grand Prix, that also would count for the competition with the highest prize money. Saddlery. One question: who has been here yesterday? No, who has not been here yesterday? Okay, this is a pretty low number. Okay, good. Okay, I will mention a few things again. that you do not get a disadvantage because Francis was so kind to do most of the tech things already yesterday, but I will go through the more important things. I'm mentioning the first things not because there were any changes, but just to remind you that we had some things about tech, because once again we are introducing something which is slightly new. So there is something about saddlery and in the competition arena, and if you go through the article, there is something about blinkers and fly masks, all the same, sheepskin, all the same. Martingales, as we said yesterday, this is not in the rules, this is what you will find in the steward's manual and not in the rule book. This is what Francis explained yesterday with the 2 martingale stoppers, which are not allowed in the competition arena. 2 martingale stoppers means there is the rein, there is the bit, then there is the first martingale stopper, then there is the ring of the martingale, and then there is a second martingale stopper. And if you use this construction, then it can happen that the running martingale becomes a standing martingale, because, like it or not, the thing is called martingale stopper. What do you think it's going to do? Yeah. I had a 20 minutes discussion with the Riders Club about that, because they were not really convinced. But if you really go with the wording, my English is bad enough, but I guess if something is called martingale stopper, then it's clear what the stopper is doing. So you all should be aware that this is not allowed in the competition arena. Yeah? Martingale stopper, ring, martingale stopper. Any questions about that, or are we? Yeah.
From Panama. Just one question regarding point 1.2. It says something about sheepskin.
Francis, where are you?
It says something about 1.2 leather or sheepskin on each cheek piece, but nothing about the noseband.
How happy I am to have the Steward General.
There's no problem at all about sheepskin on nosebands. In regular competitions, I believe it's not, Kate, it's not allowed for ponies, is that correct? Yes. Yep, okay. It's not, thank you, it's not allowed, just confirmation, yeah. It's not allowed on nosebands for ponies, but for everybody else it's okay.
Ponies are not allowed sheepskin nosebands except for a ring on it in the middle of a grackle just to protect the nose, a small ring of sheepskin.
Happy with the answer? Good, then I'm happy as well. Regulations about bits, regulations about draw reins, everything unchanged. But once again, as I said earlier, new point 6, failure to comply with any of the provisions listed in this article will incur elimination. Now it's absolutely clear if somebody is using wrong tech, it's elimination, elimination, and nothing but elimination. Good. And now it should move on. Yeah. Now we come to the point of the boots. And once again, there is a lot of text I could read to you, but I'm just trying to explain to you a little bit what we did in the committee. We had that hind boot rule for young horses, which we have already since lots of years, and it works perfectly well. However, we now got the mandate to work on a new rule for hind boots, which in 3 years will apply for all categories, age categories, all shows everywhere, and so on and so on. And you know that we have decided to do that in a 3-step thing. We start this year, we have a group next year, and then the seniors come in 2 years. The reason for that is, it is simple as that. We are really touching new territory here. We want to be very, very careful. We want to learn. We want to make some experience. And this is why we start this year with one category. The idea is, if that rule works 100% very well, we take that next year for the next category and in 2 years for the remaining categories. If we should find out during this season that it needs some fine-tuning, we will do fine-tuning, and then next year this will apply for the 2 age groups. And maybe then after another year, we do another fine-tuning. So I can't promise that this is the final version. We really have to see how it works. So our first idea was to make one rule which would apply to all the categories in the end. We, as the committee, we had a little bit the opinion, after we got some feedback from experts, that we might change the rule for young horses a little bit. Not to make it softer, but in the meantime, since we have that rule for the boots for young horses, the material has changed, the boots have changed, there is a certain development, time goes on, and we were thinking to make it a little bit more liberal without touching horse welfare issues. That was our first idea, because we thought it would be a good thing to have later on one rule. If horse welfare and no longer performance enhancing is the goal, then we thought it would be good to have one rule. However, we found out, after we got a lot of feedback from stakeholders, that obviously this young horses thing is a very sensitive thing, and at least we couldn't really convince all the people that we would not make the rules softer. So based on that, we have decided not to touch the young horses competition rules at all. So the wording is slightly different. We tried to clarify the wording, but the content of the rule and the philosophy of the rule is exactly the same for the young horses. There is no change at all. And now on top of that, we have introduced a new category for this group from veterans and amateur owners and ponies and all the things now for the first year. And this is what Francis has presented to you already yesterday. So I do not really want to go through this rule again. Read it carefully when you are at home. Take another look at that, especially the stewards, because they are the first ones to deal with that. And if you do boot and bandage control or hind boot check, you should know which boots they can wear or allowed to wear and which boots are completely out. It's very important for the stewards, but for you as ground jury, especially when you are ground jury president, it's very important to have that knowledge as well, because you are the ones who are going to eliminate somebody later on because he's using wrong tech. I found out the first time when I did this presentation for the riders that it's very difficult, because you should have different boots and I should hold them up and you should all see them, and it takes an hour just to do that. So for that reason, I have decided tonight not to go through all these points again. I'm very happy to answer questions later on together with Francis if there are any, because I'm very sure that between Christmas and New Year you have all been through the rules and you learned them all by heart already. So if there are some questions open about hind boots, I'm very happy to answer them. But to go to 3 slides or 10 slides of text, how this should be and how many straps and how tight and what material, that doesn't make too much sense to me. But if you have a question, of course, we are very open to answer the questions later on. Most of you most likely got all the relevant answers already yesterday in the presentation from Francis. The few of you who were not there, or the people who had a sleepless night, because there are questions, please feel free to ask the questions at the end of this presentation. Can we agree on this? Good. Good. So that brings me up to a new point. And even if it doesn't seem to be too important, I found out that there is more I have to tell you about that than I thought of. And this is about the officials. And there are some changes concerning officials. The first new sentence in that rule is the following: all officials officiating at CIM, CSI, CSIOs, championships and games must abide by the FEI Code of Conduct for officials and carry out their duties in accordance with the job descriptions for their respective function as published on the FEI website. I want to make 2 remarks on that. We will have a very interesting presentation at the end of this seminar about code of conducts and conflict of interests and all these things. We have this code of conduct already now since 1 year, so I hope that you are really aware of it, and please take it very serious. I'm not going to make too many comments in the afternoon when we have that session about that, but I want to make a few sentences already now. We are checking, we means John and his team, we are checking all the schedules. However, we have to rely a little bit on you. Talking about the code of conduct, you know, for example, if you are an employee for a federation, you are not allowed to officiate as ground jury president or chief steward at a CSIO. Just to give you one example, this is in the code of conduct. I do not want to motivate you to cheat, but you can't expect from us that we know each and every official and know if he or she is working for any federation. So we expect from you, seriously, that you are honest, and if you should be invited and you know that you shouldn't be up for this show, then you simply have to say no. It's not that I do not know what I'm talking about. Since I am an FEI board member, I'm not allowed to officiate at championships and games anymore. So I have to live with this. If for what reason ever I would find myself nominated for a championship, I have to go to John. Most likely John will be aware of it, that I can't do it. But if it should happen, for what reason ever, then of course it is me who has to go and say, sorry, I can't do this. We had that last year, and it simply happened that another board member who is also judging, it was a mistake. He was appointed to be appeal committee president at the Nations Cup final. So, and of course, he called John immediately, said, John, I can't do it because I'm a board member. He did that immediately, as far as I remember. Yeah, so please, if you are aware that you can't do it, please let us know. And keep it simple. Don't even agree to go, because that makes it even easier. Because if you do not do this, and later on there is an issue at the show, CAS will be very happy, I guess Michael will agree, CAS will be very happy if you then make a decision which might be even right, but then CAS finds out that you shouldn't have officiated there. What is the cost for that CAS case, the minimum? If we have a case at CAS, it's some 10,000 euro, which FEI has to pay just to go there. So please help us a little bit to save that money, that you do not put us in a position where we have to fight against somebody. And you might make the best decision you ever made. But if you are not obliged to be there, then you shouldn't have been there. So please be a little bit careful. Second remark on that sentence. Yes, there are job descriptions now, and they are available. And if you have nothing else to do, and even if it looks a little bit like bureaucracy, take a look at the job descriptions. You will be surprised what your job description is. And it doesn't matter whether you are a steward, a chief steward, what kind of level you are, what kind of job you have at the show. According to the job descriptions, we have to get you out of your comfort zone, because you have to do much more than you think. Take a look at that. If you are ready to do it, you are most welcome. We count on you, and we are very, very happy to have you. If you think that you do not want to do the job, because there is too much we ask you to do, then better stay at home. To watch it on television is also nice. Sorry to say that, but that's the case. We expect a lot now, and we have it on paper now, and we expect from you that if you decide to do your job, then please do it 100%. And I'm very sure that all of you will. There is this chart, and I wouldn't expect that you can read this. And I try to make it a little bit bigger, and still, this could be the first thing of the competency test for judges. If you can read that from 50 meters, then you are still able to judge or something. Of course, I try to make it a little easier. As you can see, there are some red things in that chart. And once again, I really ask for your support in this case. What we did is, the first change is that the minimum number of judges has been increased by 1 at most of the events. The reason for that is that now we have that liaise judge who should be there during the boot and bandage control to be the liaise person between the ground jury and the stewards. For this reason, organizers have to have 1 judge more. So the minimum number for an indoor show, for example, is no longer 3. The minimum number for an indoor show is now 4. And of course, if you have more arenas, then it should be more people. Of course, let's not go there. We can check that there are a minimum of 4. But if you know as grand jury president, oh, there are 3 arenas, and you see in your schedule that there are only 4 judges mentioned, and these arenas are running parallel, then we expect from you as grand jury president who knows the show that you contact John and say, or not necessarily John, but somebody in the department, and say, I do not have enough judges. We will find a way to convince the organizing committee to invite more. Yeah, but please let us know. John can't know for all of these some 100 events what the conditions are there. You, as the grand jury president, you know. It's good to hear from the foreign judge later on that there were some people missing, but it would be better to hear from the grand jury president that he knows in advance that we do not have enough. So please inform us. The second change for CSIO 5 stars, the water jump judge must be level 3 minimum. We had cases where, let's be honest, it's always the weakest link in the chain who has to do the water jump, which is not really a good strategy. If I'm the grand jury president, I always try to appoint the most experienced one to go to the water jump. Doing the water jump judge is not a penalty for somebody. It's not to punish somebody. This is one of the most important jobs we have, because this is one of a few occasions where you as a jumping judge make decisions all on your own. Somebody mentioned yesterday that for the stewards it's a little bit different, because you make a lot of decisions all on your own, because you are the one responsible for the stables, or you are the one responsible in the warm-up. But when you are sitting in the jury box, there are always 3 people responsible. For the water jump, it's just the water jump judge. And that has to be absolutely clear. And for that reason, we think that the water jump judge, at least at a CSIO 5-star, has to have a certain experience. And for that reason, should not be a just introduced level 2 judge who is doing his first show and then spending the whole weekend at the water jump, because of course he's not judging the Grand Prix. Yeah, so minimum level 3, very important. At all events, including games and championships, 1 grand jury member will be assigned on a rotating basis to act as liaising judge for the boots and bandage control. This judge should be preferably minimum level 2. The concept is once again the same. It's not that he has to be level 2. Sometimes on lower level events you do not have so many high qualified people. But you will understand that it makes sense to have somebody with some experience, because the decisions which have to be made there are so important, because they really have an impact on the results and on the life of athletes and horses and so on. We need experienced people. However, and I want to be very clear with this, we have now 1 judge more, and that costs money to organizing committees. And I do not want to be confronted with arguments from organizing committees later on saying, now I have to pay for 1 judge more, but this judge is never there. You have that normal judges rotation, and you have a president of the class, and you have judge 1, and you have judge number 2, and you have the water jump judge. And now there has to be a judge number 3, who is the liaise judge. If you are judge number 3, you are not free in the competition. This is not the time where you go to the hotel or go to the VIP. This is the time where you are available to officiate as liaise judge. This is not the time where you have time off. And unfortunately, from my own experience, some people misunderstand that completely and say, oh, I'm judge number 3, I have nothing to do in the class. No, you have. And please be there. Because otherwise it will be very difficult for John and me to tell organizing committees you have to pay more money and invest more money in officials, because we think it's important that you have these officials if you are not doing your job. So try your best that we can enforce these rules. Yeah, Jerry.
I totally understand the reason behind the liaise judge thing, but I've been to shows where, I was appointed as a liaise judge, and all the president of ground jury wanted me to do was, is there something, call me and I'll come down. So I think that makes the liaise judge a little bit redundant at some point. Is this liaise judge supposed to be making a decision there and then on behalf of the ground jury?
That
this
is
person supposed to call the president of ground jury to come down and take a look. I mean, this could be done by the chief steward or any of the stewards.
That is up to the ground jury president to decide what he wants to do. If this is, I can only tell you what I usually do. If this is a normal show with one competition arena, and I'm judging the Grand Prix, there is a liaise judge, then depending on the circumstances and depending on the thing as such, it could be an experienced judge who is down there, who is in contact with me, and we are living in modern times. If I can see the pictures and you send me the pictures by SMS and I can see that all, I might tell you that you are the one who can also make the decision, because it's a ground jury decision, and I might delegate that to you. But there might be a show with 3 competition arenas going on at the same time. So how would you, as ground jury president, deal with that if you have 2 blood cases at the same time? It has to be somebody else. It could be the foreign judge or whatever. It depends a little bit on experience, but for me it's important that there is somebody there. And then it depends how far it is. If it is 50 meters away from the jury box, then sometimes I even say, okay, you stay with me in the box, because if there is a blood case, you take over and do my job in the jury box, and I just go down the stairs and deal with that immediately. That could be a concept. At other shows, like Olympia, where it takes you 10 minutes from the jury box to the warm-up, yeah, Donnie and me, we are old people.
Very old. Very old.
At least for JD and me.
Willem, 2 minutes?
Yeah,
3.
for young people, yeah. But so it takes you a while to go there. Okay, I'll take another one. I'm going to blame Belgium. Mechelen. If you there try to leave the jury box with 10,000s of people running around, it takes you an hour from the warm-up to the jury box. Yeah? So in these cases, it's practically impossible that somebody really goes down from the box. That depends on the circumstances. Keep it simple, be practical. The liaise judge is part of the ground jury. That's why he is there. And if you find a way that you are happy that he is making the decision, fine. I have to say, not that I do not trust other people, but if any way possible, if it is possible, I want to see it myself. But okay, that's up to you, if this is answering your question. Good. Angèle. And then Frances. Francine, sorry.
Okay,
Francine.
so we have 3 people in the jury box,
Right.
1 for the water, 1 on the boot check.
Right.
But that's not on all competitions. So you have 2 judges which are not judging a small competition. They have to do some other job. I mean, the liaise judge is there for the boot check.
Right.
Not all competitions have a boot check.
Yeah, okay, then in this competition there might be 2 judges off duty, but
the off duty I'm talking on the organizers' part, is the off duty judges can help the stewards, can go to the warm up.
If I'm the ground jury president, I always appoint a judge number 3, and if there is a boot and bandage check, he is there. If not, he is just hanging around, but because even if there is no boot and bandage control, there might be a horse coming out with a blood case. Yeah. And the stewards are witnessing that, and then they call you, and then you have nobody.
And stables.
The idea, or you walk through the stables. The idea is that you have 3 people in the box. If necessary, you have a water jump judge, and you have 1 more judge who is on duty. He is not judging, but he is on duty. He is available to act as liaise judge for all these cases. This judge is not free. That's why we have increased the number. Simple as that.
Just to make it clear.
Yeah, no. Thank you for the question.
One question for national judges. They are allowed to judge up to 2-star CSIs. Which part I can do as well? Only the... I think it's loud enough. I think it's an instructor voice. I think I'm national judge, not international, only steering, but I can judge up to 2-star level CSI. Which part I can do as well? I'm not allowed to do the water jump. I did 10 years before.
Yeah.
And what is with the laser in boot and bandage control? I'm only in the jury box, or what part I can do as well?
More or less, yes. Sorry? For the 1 star, you could even do the water jump, yeah. But this is somewhere hidden there in that very clear chart. Good.
No, not. Sorry, me.
Ah, yeah,
One.
Franz. Oh,
Yeah, thank you. Just quickly about the liaise judge. Personally, when I'm when I'm a steward, I'm really happy to know that there's a liaise judge who is going to be around, and that person has been appointed, and that's going to be the contact person. However, I would ask the liaise judge, please, by all means, come and watch the boot check. There's no problem with that whatsoever. But please keep out of the space that the stewards need to do that boot check, because there are times when we need to get out of the way very, very quickly, and we really don't want to be falling over the judge who's coming to have a look at what we're doing. Okay? Thank you for that. I think I speak on behalf of all stewards for that one.
And if I can add another question, the role of that liaise judge is not to supervise the stewards and tell the stewards how they have to do their job. We are very happy that we have experts there with the stewards, and I would say that the average judge knows less about stewarding and about these procedures than the average steward. At least I hope that this is the case. So please do not say that you are the supervisor and now you tell the people how they have to do their job. That's not the idea. Simple as that. The next sentence is not new, as you see, because there's nothing in red. Still, I have put that sentence down, and not only because I need that as introduction to the next paragraph, but also because I just want to highlight this. The FEI philosophy is very clear on that. Each competition is to be judged by a group of 3 judges in the judges box, and 1 additional judge for the water jump if there is one. 3 judges in the jury box means 3 judges in the stewy box. And I make this remark for 2 reasons. The one reason is that I know, and I'm not in a position to stop that, but at least I can mention that here. I know that in certain regions there is a different philosophy. There are 2 people in the box and 1 is somewhere else. That's not the FEI philosophy. I know that the system is working. That's not the point. But from the legal point, a competition has to be judged by 3 people in the jury box, in the real sense of the wording. And the second thing is, and this does not depend on any region, there are people who think that there are less important competitions who could be judged with 2 people. And there are rumors that there are even shows where there are some arenas where there is only 1 judge. And this judge at the same time is the commentator, the one who is opening the in-gate and is operating the start and finish line and all the other things. I can only talk about myself, and maybe I'm not as good as whatever. If I have to judge, I have enough to do. I'm judging and I do my part. I can be the president of the competition, I can be judge 1, I can be judge 2. And I have enough to do with this. But I'm trying to do that 100%. And I try to minimize to make mistakes. It would be good if you all could concentrate on your job description. Just go through it and then you will see what you have to do when you do all these positions. It's a lot, and it's much more than you expect. So, there is no such thing than an unimportant competition. Even if it is an amateur class at 7 o'clock in the morning, you might think this is not as important as the Grand Prix 160 on Sunday afternoon. Yeah, maybe not. For the people who are competing there, this is their private Olympic Games, just to point that out. And they deserve a prepared ground jury who has everything under control and investing the same energy in this amateur class as later on Sunday afternoon for the Grand Prix. So to have only 2 judges in the jury box for an amateur class or a class which is starting at 7 o'clock in the morning, I know this is not really the time of day I would like to work, but that's the way it is. Once again, make your decision. You want to officiate? Fine. You do not like the conditions? Do not come back. But if you are there, then please do this. So, 3 people in the box. We have added something where I would really like to get your support, that we really can implement that, and this is the secretary to the ground jury. And I know that some people think that this is ridiculous, even some people here in the room. They say this is ridiculous, we do not need that, we want to control that all on our own, and so on and so on. I know all these arguments. However, first of all, I don't think that any dressage judge would think about doing his competition without a secretary, because he says, I have to concentrate on what the horse rider is doing at any time. We think that we can fill in a form, looking at the form, writing down 4 at 5, and at the same time you are checking what the rider is doing there. Do you really think you can do that? Some chameleons can do this. Yeah, the one eye is in this direction and the other one in that. I can't do that. I'm not a chameleon. Maybe I'm not good enough, but I simply can't do this. So now it's, and we can discuss that now forever and ever, if you are in favor of it or not. This is what it is. From now on, there has to be a secretary of the ground jury. It does not have to be a judge, and this is now also stated in the rule. It can be a volunteer. So organizers got a little bit concerned when they saw that and they say, oh, now we have to hire another judge. No, 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 no. It can be the mother-in-law of the show director. It can be the grand-sister of the cost designer, whatever. It does not have to be an educated person. It has to be somebody who can write and is reliable, that he puts some things on a sheet. So this is what we need for each and every competition. And if there are 3 arenas, you need 3 secretaries. Please insist with organizing committees that you have that person. This is a voluntary job. It doesn't need a business class flight. You do not have to fly a secretary in from across the ocean. It's up to the organizing committee. That's the first remark. The second remark, if the organizing committee, for what reason ever, invites lots of judges and they have nothing to do, and then is asking you if you are free to do the secretary's job in one of the classes, there's nothing wrong with that. But then you are not part of the 3 people who are judging. Yeah? If there are 10 judges at the show and only 3 are on duty, and one is doing the hind boots, and the other remaining 6 are free, well, then there's nothing wrong if the organizing committee say, could you be so kind and be the secretary in the next class? And then you should say yes. If I can't convince you with all these arguments, you should try at least to leave the impression that you are, no, that not that you are important, but that it is important that you can do your job under good conditions. If you send out the message that it's also possible with 2 judges, and if you also send the message, oh, you know what, you do not need an announcer. Sorry, Nick, but at the moment I'm protecting your job, by the way. I hope that you like it.
I've got the line to destroy you in a minute, Stephan.
Good. If you then think you can do that all because you want to please organizing committees, then you shouldn't be too surprised if sooner or later we get a request from organizing committees, can't you change the rule? 1 judge is enough, obviously, because my judges always give me the impression they can do it all on their own. So be a little bit careful with that. There is a reason that we think there should be 3 people and there should be a distribution of tasks. So please try to protect us, or better to say protect the rule, and help us to get that really introduced. So, having said that, we talked already yesterday about foreign stewards, that foreign stewards are appointed at 5-star events and at all the tours. What is new is that the foreign steward appointment is in addition to the appointment of the chief steward and the assistant stewards. So, as a matter of fact, now there is 1 more. Let's be honest, the things we have to do are getting more and more and more and more and more. And to a certain degree, we need to have also some more officials. Otherwise, we simply can't do the workload. It is what it is. Qualification for the Grand Prix. There are some pre-qualified people for Grand Prix competitions. And it was the winner of the events Grand Prix of the previous year according to the following conditions. And we had to find out that, of course, sometimes there was a previous show the year before, but maybe the show was on a different star level. So maybe the organizer did a 2-star show one year, and then for what reason ever, the same organizer the next year is doing a 5-star competition because he gets a special permission. Then according to the old rule, the winner of the 2-star Grand Prix would have been pre-qualified for the 5-star Grand Prix. That doesn't make too much sense. So for that reason, we have changed that slightly. So for the Grand Prix at a CSI 3-star, 4-star, 5-star event, the winner of that event's Grand Prix the previous year is eligible to participate, providing the previous year's event was the same star level or higher star level. So you are doing a 3-star in 2018, or you did a 3-star in 18, you do a 3-star in 19, the winner of the 18 Grand Prix is pre-qualified in 19. You did a 5-star in 18, now you do a 4-star. The winner of the 5-star is pre-qualified in the 4-star. You did a 3-star in 18 and you do a 4-star in 19, then it's a higher level and this winner is not pre-qualified. I guess that makes sense and everybody understands that. So for the Grand Prix at a CSI 1-star, 2-star, the winner of that event's Grand Prix the previous year is eligible to participate regardless of the star level of the previous year's event. Any questions to that? Good. You know that there is a rule that before you can take a horse for the Grand Prix, this has nothing to do with the qualification for the Grand Prix, but that this horse has to finish a round. This is what we had. However, this rule made a lot of sense, but it was a little bit depending on the type of competition. And to use the worst example, if you have a fall and out competition, you finish a round, if you jump fence number 1, you knock it down, they ring the bell, and you jump the next fence, and you have a result. And with this, you have finished a round. And with this, you could take this horse, according to the old rules, as a Grand Prix horse. That was not really the intention. So, based on that, we have taken a look at all these special competitions, and now there is a selection of competitions which would count, and another group which would not count. So, to cut a long story short, so these competitions may count for the Grand Prix. All normal competitions, masters competitions, hunting competitions or speed and handiness competitions, Nations Cup competitions, sponsor team or other team competitions, hit and hurry competitions, accumulator competition, top score competition, take your own line competition. In addition to that, competition over 2 rounds, normal 2 phases competition. I will explain to you later what a normal 2 phases competition is. You will learn that in a second. Special 2-phase competitions as long as they then really finish the second phase. Competition in groups with the winning round, competition with the winning round, and derby, and finally competition over combinations. These competitions do count. The consequence is that the following competitions do not count anymore. And this is the puissance, because there you have 4 fences and that's all. At the moment it was possible that you jump these 4 fences and then you could take that horse for the Grand Prix, whatever the result was, as long as you finished. 6-bar, I guess it's the same. Fall and out, I have mentioned already. Relay competition, let's be honest, this is more a kind of display than it is really a competition. Knockout competition, that's exactly the same. And completing only the first phase of that special 2-phase competition. So just to point that out, take a look at that. Most likely it's easier to learn by heart this slide, because then all the other classes count. Whatever you do, take a look at that. Be a little bit careful. If riders ask you, if I finish this competition, can I then take the horse for the Grand Prix? Be a little bit careful. Have another look at that before you give a final answer, because athletes will rely on what you are saying. And if you as Grand Jury President tell an athlete, if you finish that class, you can take the horse, then you shouldn't tell him on Grand Prix day, oh, sorry, I made a mistake, because then the athlete is telling you, if I would have known that in advance, on Saturday I would have competed with the horse again. So be very careful if you give really an interpretation on these rules. Yeah, I said already, competitions or competition in two phases. Yeah, we had long discussions about that because obviously it was impossible, and I do not talk about any person here in the room, but obviously there were some officials who simply couldn't understand the message and the sense of that all. So now our first idea was to take out the former 5.6 and to make a new article and call it single fence, as they call it in Great Britain, as far as I know.
Single phase.
Single phase, yeah. Single phase competition. We wanted to call it like that, or French to face, or whatever. But we wanted to take that out, because at the end of the day, the philosophy of that competition is not really a two faces competition. It's something in between. And our first idea was to take that out and to give the child a new name. But then, unfortunately, we found out that we do not have any free article numbers, because we are already with the special competitions on 279, and 280 is already a new chapter. So we said, okay, then we keep it under one headline, but we now have two different chapters. We have now the so-called normal competition in two phases, which is Article 274.1. These are 5 options, and these are the former Article 274.5.1 up to 274.5.5. These are the normal two phases competitions. First phase not against the clock, second phase against the clock, both phases against the clock, and all these versions. No change whatsoever. It's exactly the same. The wording is slightly different. We try to make it really clear that now really everybody understands it. Hopefully we succeed with that. Let's see. The second group are the so-called special competitions in two phases, which is article number 274.2. This is the former article 274.5.6. If you go through this, we have now really clarified that if you go to a normal competition and you finish the first phase, then with this you have finished a round and you could take that horse for a Grand Prix because you have a result. In that special two-phase competition, you only get a result after finishing the second phase. There is no change at all. It's exactly the same. We just tried our best to put that now in writing that really everybody understands that. Hopefully at least a few more understand it, because we had constant problems because ground juries gave wrong advice to riders. And don't tell me the riders should know what to do, but if they get wrong information from ground juries, that's not really good. So we hope that we have clarified the situation. I hope that I'm not expecting too much from you, that you have to learn a new article number. I don't think that this is really an issue. And after 2 months, I guess we will not talk about the 5.6 and the 5.3 anymore, and we will go with these article numbers. Just take a look at the new schedules. There was a little bit of a hiccup at the beginning of the year. There were 2 or 3 schedules which were approved with the wrong article numbers. But then it was very easy to clarify that during the show, what that really meant. And now I have checked most of the schedules and I saw that they are all in line now with the new rules. And if you should find some competition where we didn't pay attention on that, then just correct it at the show. This is not a change of the schedule, this is just clarifying it. So the Article 274 has only a new structure. There is no change at all about the content. And the change has been made for clarification purpose only. That's the only reason that we did that. Finally, the last competition I would like to draw your attention to is the competition with the winning round. Oh yeah, sorry, of course. If you wait for the microphone.
Sorry, Eilish, Mulholland, Ireland. Just going back to the two-phase, please, the normal two-phase. If a rider continues on into the second phase and jumps a fence intentionally, so therefore they're eliminated, as we said earlier on, how do you record that on the result for qualifying purposes? Do you know what I mean? Please.
I hope that the legal director confirms what I'm saying now. and I'm absolutely sure that he will. And I have to say that I'm not 100% happy with that. But from what I understand is if you have been eliminated retroactively after you really finished the round, that would be the same with the blood case. It would still count as a finished round to take the horse to the Grand Prix. This is at least what we decided for the blood cases. And I'm still not absolutely happy with that, but sometimes we are not always happy. But this is what we decided for the blood cases. We do not have a clear rule what we would do if somebody is really finishing now the first round of or the first phase of a two faces competition, would pass the finish line, and then he jumps on purpose another fence. So he would be also eliminated retroactively. I have a certain feeling that for consistency reasons, we would have to say, what is the difference between being eliminated after a blood case or being eliminated after your performance because of another reason? I guess we have to go for the same then. Is the director also in agreement? Oh yeah, good. We are all in agreement that it still would count. But for the class, it's elimination. If you are absolutely sure that he did that on purpose and it was not the situation that he couldn't stop his horse jumping the fence. If he's jumping the water jump on his way out, which has nothing to do with the class, then it is elimination. Yeah. But still, the horse could be taken to the Grand Prix. Good. Well.
Valerie. Wow. It speaks.
Val Turner, GB. Just going back to the extra staffing that you were talking about, I do find it very difficult when you're talking particularly to the two-star shows. You're now saying that they have to have 3 judges and a secretary. We then have a timekeeper and we have a commentator. Right. And then the judges' box isn't big, the jury box is too small. I mean, practically. Yeah. And then they say, well, I can't afford a bigger jury box. You know, this is a problem, especially with the lower star shows.
Yeah. I'm not talking about you. I could be sarcastic and say, go on a diet, and maybe that would help, and you have a little bit. No, I am not saying that. Rewind, delete it, I'm not saying that. Yes, I see this point. But let's talk a moment about working conditions as such, and I'm very happy that you raised that question. There are some jury boxes which are simple as that, they are not good enough. Sorry to say that. They might be very traditional, but if you have to work in a jury box where not all of the judges can sit in the front row and can see something, then there is something wrong with the jury box. And I know that some people hate me because the first thing I usually do when I'm going to a show, I'm putting the jury box upside down, because we are always the last to arrive. Yeah, the first one who is sitting there is the timekeeper, and he said, oh, I need already 1/3 of the jury box for all my equipment. So, and then of course there are also some speakers who think that they can't do the job all on their own and that they need 3 speakers because they have to do 5 different languages at the same time, and so on and so on. And then there is only 1 empty chair, and then I always say, well, sorry, we need some more space for the judges. And then the answer I get from these people, especially from the timekeepers and all the, yeah, but we have to see something. And then I always say, well, do you think that judges do not have to see something? If this is the situation, then you might not solve that the moment when you are there at the show, but then you have to talk to the organizer. The working conditions have to be good enough, and if the jury box is too small, have a word with the organizing committee. You won't change that for this show, but you could say for next year, you should take into consideration to change that step by step. And then you will find a way. I had one experience where Nick was sitting on my knees for the whole competition. That was not really the best experience of my whole life, but I'm not saying where it was, but we really had a jury box where nobody could see anything.
Not a single round of show jumping.
Yeah. So I have no idea how we managed to deal with that. But this show was only at that venue for one time at all. And we are very happy that this show has moved to another place where now the conditions are perfect because the jury box is really good. So as I say, you might not solve the problem immediately, but my experience with organizing committees, if you really have good arguments and you tell them, look, you have to change things. We do not want to have a 5-star apartment. We do not need a penthouse. But you have to understand that we have to bring more people in. And all these technical people, they get more and more and more and more and more. So it doesn't really help if we can't see anything. You have to insist that judges have a seat and that judges can see something. And sometimes you can't stop it immediately, but then you have to work on it. That's the only comment I can make. Yeah? And to be honest, if you have that secretary, the secretary does not necessarily have to see everything. It would be good if the secretary can, but if the secretary would sit in the second row, there's nothing wrong with that because the secretary is not judging. Yeah. In an ideal world, this is the case. And good that you mentioned that, because once again, I would just draw your attention. I was thinking about putting that slide in this, but as the presentation is already long enough, I decided not to do that. In the level 1 course, we have one slide about the organization of a jury box. And I know that I'm talking about the ideal world, but I'm coming to most of the jury boxes, and it would be possible to organize that in a good way. And they simply do that because we always do it like this. And simple as that, there is a tendency that mistakes would happen if you do not do that. In the ideal world, the grand jury president is sitting right in the center of it. On one side is judge number 1, on the other side is judge number 2. Next to judge number 2 should be the timekeeper, because the job of judge number 2 is to control the timekeeper. Next to judge number 1 should be the secretary, because the judge number 1 is calling the faults and should control what the secretary is doing. It does not make any sense to me that judge number 1 is sitting there and the secretary is sitting next to Nick. How can you control this? This does not make any sense. And even more important, that the guy who has to supervise the timekeeper, who is sitting there, is sitting at the other end of the jury box. That does not make any sense. If there is a problem, you simply can't do this. And I know that people hate me for that. Usually when I come to the jury box, the first thing is I put the countdown and the bell in another position, because I do not want to sit at the end of the table when I'm grand jury president. It might be different if you can't see well enough. Then you might find another solution. But in most of the cases, you can set up the jury box just as I explained. It helps to avoid mistakes. Simple as that. That's my experience. If you have a different one, good. Good luck. Good. Any more questions? Otherwise, the last article, because I have, actually I do not have any more minutes, but with 1 more minute, I do the last article. Competition with winning round. The same principle or the same philosophy as we do with jump-off competitions or 2-round competitions. So the competition with 2 rounds and a winning round is a new point 10. Athletes who are eliminated or who retire in the winning round will be placed equal last in the winning round. Once again, equal last means following the people who get a normal placing. And as this is also a 2 rounds competition, the withdrawn people are handled in exactly the same way as I discussed already. The second format in this article is the competition with 1 round and a winning round. So where in the winning round everybody starts with the penalties. This is old. In this competition, at least 25% and a minimum of 10 athletes of the first round qualify for the winning round, in which they start in reverse order of the results of the first round. The following athletes qualify for the winning round according to the conditions of the schedule. So, and then you have some new options. First option is at least 25% or a set number of athletes, in any case a minimum of 10 athletes, qualify for the winning round based on their penalties and time in the first round. That's the first option. You just take a look at the schedule if it is this option or the other option. Or, and this is the second option, at least 25% or a set number of athletes, in any case a minimum of 10 athletes, qualify for the winning round based on their penalties and time in the first round, and in any case all athletes without penalties in the first round qualify for the winning round. So we give more flexibility to organizing committees. whatever they like to do. If they want to have all the clear rounds back, fine. If they think that there are some time restrictions and they want lesser people coming back, they use the other option. Leave it up to the organizing committees. They know what they want to do. If there is pressure from television, if they want to fill a whole session with this competition, up to them. Whatever it is approved in the schedule, you go for that. Do not try to change now the format, because after the winning round it becomes obvious that the daughter of the sponsor still has a clear round, but not all clear rounds would come back. So be a little bit careful with that. The exact percentage or number of athletes to return for the winning round must be indicated in the schedule. And once again, and that's the last sentence, athletes who are eliminated or who retire in the winning round will be placed equal last in the winning round. So, this was a selection of the rule changes. I would really like to thank you very much for your attention. If there are super urgent questions, I would be very happy to answer the questions with the help of the director. So I would listen to the questions and John would give you the answer. That's a little bit the concept. Of course, I would like to motivate you that there is a coffee break now. So just in case you are interested in a coffee, it would be also an option that we just stop here with a 4 minutes delay only, which is pretty much a new record. This is not that bad. Up to you. No, seriously. Is there anything you really want to know about the rules, going back to Woody Allen? What we can clarify here, because at the moment, we could do this, bearing in mind that Michael is more or less on next, and if there are any legal questions coming up, we can also go back to that then. Yeah.
Please say who you are. Thank you. Cindy from Canada. Just to verify the blood rule, it's now changed from disqualification to elimination. So if it's in the jump off section, there was no blood in the first round. There's blood now in the jump off. They are now tied with retired, other eliminated.
Exactly.
They're not totally out of the running.
This is a change from last year when we changed it from disqualification to elimination. The consequence is now, let's say you are doing a Grand Prix with the 2 rounds format with the jump off. You are eliminated because of a blood case in the first round. You would be completely out. You do the first round, you qualify for the second round, and you have a blood case in the second round, then you would be placed according to your result of the first round. If you make it to the jump-off and you are eliminated in the jump-off, then you are eliminated in the jump-off and you still would be placed and you still would get prize money.
Thank you.
Yeah. I learned that I should not repeat the question if you have any more questions. So I'm not asking that anymore. So once again, I thank you for your attention and for all your questions.